Hey, it's Alquintia Selawayne, better known to you as AKAnundrum, and welcome to another amazing episode of the Drum Circle Show, where we highlight some of our lesser known, unsung, what I call entrepreneurial heroes that you might feel like you connect with just a little bit more, and they have more boots on the ground issues and solutions for you. Now, if you are into the financial space, if that's where your business is, if you have customers that have those products that they need, this is the interview for you. So if you're new here, guess what? You know what you're going to love? We get right into it. We waste no time. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is allow my guest to introduce himself, his business, let you know how long he's been in business, to give you a little bit of information, and then we're going to jump right into it. Okay. So with no further ado, you know how I do. I'm going to pass it off to you.
Hey, peace, everyone. My name is Devin Alphin, and thank you so much, AKAnundrum, for having me on your platform. I got to say that I'm honored and grateful. I see how you moving out here. I see the value that you provide on your social channels, and it's backed by actual research. It's not no internet guru type stuff. It's backed research. So I really appreciate that about you. And so I'm very grateful to be on the platform and just grateful to have the opportunity to be in front of the people and hopefully bring something valuable to the space as well. With that being said, again, my name is Devin Alphin. I am the founder of the Black Wealth Blueprint. And I'm going to be talking to you around everything financial today, but we can definitely get into it. I'm excited to answer the questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for my flowers. Okay. Thank you for my flowers. Like seriously, that really, especially when you just touched into that research fact base. Guru
Definitely.
Financial. So you ready to get into the hot? You sound like you're ready to get into it.
Let's go. Let's go.
Okay. So now we need to know a little bit more about your businesses, the products and the services that you provide, as well as like how long you've been in business as well. And then we're ready to get into the thick of it.
Yep. So again, I'm the founder of the Black Wealth Blueprint, and I'm gonna be honest with you. I really kind of stumbled my way into this. So just quick background on me. I've been working in the financial industry for the last 13 years, the last 7 of which I've been serving as a wealth manager for high net worth individuals here in the state of Georgia, as well as scattered across the US as well, just based off of where I'm licensed at. But throughout my career, a lot of the folks that I'm sitting down with at this level of wealth and this level of just net worth, quite frankly, don't look like us. And so it's afforded me experience, but also knowledge in finance that I'm looking around going, man, we just don't know. And I'm looking around like, okay, we gotta bring this information to the forefront because it's not like we don't have the dollars. And yes, I know about, the spending power of our community versus others, but still we out here and we doing well for ourselves. And so a lot of times we are just not exposed to the same level of information and the planning and the strategies and the different things that we can take advantage of to be able to build and grow our spending power and grow financial legacies and things of that nature. So wanted to bring a lot of that back to the community. And I've been in business now for, oh wow, just over a year, I think. And again, it's funny to even say I'm in business because it's just kind of been this slow, organic, gradual process of doing a little bit more. But just from a service perspective, what I'm offering, I teach financial literacy. My goal is to help Black entrepreneurs and Black professionals gain financial security. And there's a key difference between financial freedom and financial security that I'm happy to talk deeper through. But my goal is to help Black individuals, again, entrepreneurs and professionals, be able to gain that financial security so that they can build financial freedom on top of that.
Well, definitely. Can you juxtapose the difference? What is the difference between that freedom versus that security?
Financial freedom. So I do a webinar every Wednesday night, and I get into this more. But just to highlight it, there are 7 pillars that I believe are the elements of financial security. And one of those elements is our mindset. I can't tell you how many folks I've sat down with, they've got the net worth, but they don't have the mindset to truly enjoy their money. They are a prisoner of their money, quite frankly. It brings a lot of anxiety, it brings a lot of fear, it brings a lot of just double-mindedness. They are crushed under the weight of their net worth. It's amazing how much I see it. So that is one of the hugest pillars that I think differentiates between financial security and financial freedom. Beyond that, a lot of times I'm sitting down with individuals who don't understand how to manage their cash. And so, despite the fact that they've amassed and accrued quite a bit, the way they spend, they're going to run out of money. We can see it based off of the financial planning and the technology that we use, that we can map out the trajectory of their finances, and we can see you are on a crash course, you're going to run out of money. Is that truly wealthy? Just because when we look at it now, we see a certain balance or we see a certain net worth. You don't necessarily have the mindset or the habits in place to maintain this and to perpetuate it into the next generation. So those are just 2 of the 7 pillars that we talk about deeper in the Black Wealth Blueprint, around making sure you've got those bolstered so that we have true financial freedom. I liken it to the analogy of basically any mansion that you look at right now is sitting on top of a concrete foundation. And if it's not, then let there be some kind of mudslide or whatever the case may be, topographically, that house is coming down. I don't care how big that house is. And so financial security is that platform, it is that foundation, if you will, that you can now build true financial freedom on, where you are not a slave to your money, you are not crushed by the weight of it, you understand how to manage it as well as to perpetuate it on to the future generations.
Okay, so now one of the things also that the sentiment that I heard you express is that just because you acquire wealth doesn't mean that you're going to keep wealth,
That's a
right?
fact.
And also, I think that by us not having, a lot of us, not all of us, but not having those conversations in our home about wealth and sustainability, it's more like acquiring. It's acquiring. The focus has
Hmm.
been on acquiring because we've largely not had, but
Right.
actually sustaining and keeping that wealth. And so what we see some of the repeated behaviors a lot. And it does not matter across the board, that whether it is in the record industry or the entrepreneurial industry, those of us who have never really had money, as soon as we get it, we start to spend it because we feel the need to, one, overcompensate for the lack that we've had, right? We try to reward ourselves. We
Yep.
also feel an obligation to take care of everyone around us. And then, we also have that sort of like mentality of almost like what I would call terminal mode, where sometimes you have something and deep down subconsciously, you're so afraid you're not going to, have it for very long, that you want to enjoy it. It's that YOLO sort of,
Yep.
mentality. And
Yep.
so we wind up kind of balling out, right? We
Yep.
wind up kind of going crazy. We wind up also hiring staff, and that's going to be 100% transparent, even with myself. That was one of the first fundamental, and I don't want to say mistakes necessarily so, but learning lessons, is that when I first started to acquire and I built a team, you try to repair a lot of the things that were done wrong or some of the injustices, right? So you're like, I'm going to hire my people, I'm going to pay them really well, you know what I mean? And things like that. Not to say that that's wrong, but sometimes we find ourselves overspending and overstaffing. And when we look up, it's kind of like, oh my God, that's a lot, going out. So there's a lot of opportunity to misspend, even if it's not on designer and clothes, there's a lot of opportunity to kind of overspend. And you said, looking at that trajectory, you can see like, hey, you're headed for that crash, right? Now, in this space, there has been a lot of drama. I saw it coming. I'm not even gonna hold you. I forewarned people in 2020 that in 2022, especially and onward, we were going to see an unraveling of the financial literacy movement, teachers, gurus, whatever you want to call them. It was inevitable. I saw it because we were overstimulated with funds. A lot of people then saw the opportunity and they were investing. A lot of the solutions that were promised or given and taught were solutions that worked in the 2019 environment. They gave you what worked in 2019 that they had been doing, 2018, so forth. It's all worked.
Right.
So when they gave you the Turo play and the Airbnb play and then the real estate play, whatever play post pre-lockdown, those plays worked. But then they taught it to you in a lockdown confined situation. When you went to apply those lessons in the wild in 2022, 2023, it's a very different environment and a very different landscape. So that information is largely antiquated. It does not fit, right? Also, there's a saturation in that environment. So I knew that, one, people were not going to get the return on their investment. Once that capital declined, those people were going to now have some resentment. They need somebody to blame. They're like, wait a minute, right? Now, that's one. Number two, there were a lot of people who did overpromise and underdeliver. There were a lot of people who entered into this space who largely just learned some stuff themselves, and now they're passing themselves off as teachers. So we're seeing it now. And the one mistrusted area that you really don't want to have a label slapped on you is when it comes to people's money and their health.
That's a fact.
Those are two areas that you have no wiggle room for consumer mistrust, right? So for you, what are you seeing? How are you battling this? And what are you doing to set yourself apart in the midst of this? And we're just seeing the onslaught. It's not all the fallout is not even there. So how is that impacting you? How are you internalizing it? How are you dealing with this?
Oh, that's a good question. This is one of the reasons why I was even hesitant to start putting myself out there like this. However, I'm passionate about teaching. That's really where uh that's really where I shine. And I get that from my clients as well. A lot of times I didn't even want to do this. I didn't want to come to this meeting. I didn't want to deal with this because dealing with finances is almost like going to the dentist, right? But oh, you really helped me feel a lot more comfortable. Now I understand what's happening with my money. I get it now. So I can't deny my gift or my passion. I am out to my I'm strong in the area of being able to take what could be complex for other people and breaking it down into very simple bite-sized pieces that it's like, okay, once I heard that, I can't unhear it. That's locked. That's locked in. Um, what I'm seeing a lot of is exactly what you mentioned. You're not going to be able to get solid tax advice for your situation in a 1-minute clip. You just, you're not. You're not. You're not gonna know how to invest or the right way to invest for you just because this person put out and said, "Hey, this fund is doing really well." That may not fit your investment strategy, right? So if you are taking financial advice, right, and applying it to your situation based off of what you've seen on social media, that I'm seeing a lot of that. It's on the part of, I think it's two part. It's on the part of the people that are putting it out there. You want to, if you're going to put it out there, you got to put out correct information, number one, but there needs to be some level of a, hey, you need to speak with somebody and make sure this applies to your situation. There needs to be some phrase or just something you need to speak on that, because the other flip side of it is people are taking that and applying it directly to their situation when that may not be the case. It may be a great place to start, but you got folks, y'all got to do your own due diligence. Even with my stuff, if I'm putting out something, I'm not saying go do that. I'm saying you might want to look into this may apply to your situation. So I think it's on both sides. What differentiates me is 13 years. I manage over a $400 or $400 million book of business right now. And I'm licensed to be able to speak on everything from investments to different forms of insurance. And so I'm not going to put myself, because I also have licenses to protect. I'm not going to put myself in a position where I'm putting something out that can be misconstrued, right? So hopefully that answers that question. And again, I'm happy to speak on it deeper than that.
Yeah, well, I just feel like that needs to be underscored. 13 years licensed, right? This is not a fly-by-night situation or operation. This is not an opportunistic, trendy thing that you
Right,
jumped on. This is what you've been doing,
right,
right? Let me say again, 13 years
right, right.
licensed, right? That right there is definitely one of the things that, when we saw it too, and I can only imagine for people like yourself who are solid and fundamentally like based in your industry, to see these trendy folks come along, and maybe what they are great at is marketing. And so they get the placement and they get the eyeballs, and then they
Right.
be aspirational, regardless if it's real or fake. They kind of know how to attract the audience, and to see that and to know yourself, like looking and listening to some of these plays, some of this advice. I can only imagine you sitting there like, oh my God.
I mean, because even the word, like, I'm not knocking it. That's the thing. I'm not knocking the play, but I'm coming from the angle of I'm trying to teach a man to fish.
Mhm.
I'm teaching financial literacy, not so that you can keep having to come back to me and saying, "What do I do next? What do I do now? What do I do now?" I want you to understand how to sit down and look at your entire financial situation and see how every piece fits together, so that you can say, "Okay, this needs to be tweaked because it's going to impact these other areas." I'm bringing financial literacy to the table rather than financial plays, if that makes sense.
And then now I'm going to ask you a hard question. There's certain terminology and certain things that I was able to really predict that I knew were going to be just something that most people were going to like try to alienate, or just distance themselves from. So I'm into virtual spaces, right? Largely, whether it's apps or the Black Virtual Mall, Black Virtual Convention Center. And I remember when, the metaverse
Hmm.
came out, and after my mall, and everyone came to me, and you can only imagine how many DMs I got on the conversations of the metaverse,
Hmm.
NFT, cryptocurrency, anything that had anything to do with digital.
Yep, yep.
And myself, I'm able to kind of see these rising trends that may be great conceptually, but I
Mhm.
also understand the technological, there's a infusion or diffusion of technological innovation, where there's 6 degrees by where you cannot separate. It's too far for a person to adapt something new and technological to, from where they already are.
Right.
So in other words, I know that when something is too far ahead conceptually from what we're doing right now tangibly, there's going to take some time for mass adaptation for that thing. This is how you get people who enter into markets far too early, because they see it and it sounds great, like the dot-com era. And mind you, you may be right. You may have been absolutely right that eventually all the shopping is going to take place on the internet, but it's not going to take place overnight. It's going to take the customer some time. So for myself, my hesitancy was when I see something that innovative come about, I know it's going to be a prime opportunity for the early adapters, the rug pullers, the grifters, the mistakes, the errors. It's going to fall flat. No, you're right. So in other words, when I saw the NFT play, I was like, oh, this is not going to go like you think. You're not even going to see the last iteration of the metaverse yet. So everyone who's running to it and investing in it right now today, that's probably not even going to be the final version of it. So I wouldn't recommend it. So I did not put my stock into words like metaverse and crypto and NFT. And one of the things that conceptually, even though it doesn't feel like it's sarcasm, has been financial literacy in the Black space. I remember when the word started really becoming a buzzword, financial literacy, and people were putting it together like, oh, literacy, that means, to become literate to something financially. Then it got a very broad, sweeping sort of a definition. And now it's been largely overused for everything, where it's almost like Forex. You don't even want that in your bio right now. You know what I mean? Like if you were like Forex, you like, don't mention Forex, right? Like as soon as I think that, me personally, just my theory, I believe that the concept of financial literacy is becoming tainted. That when people hear it, it's going to have an emotional response for them that is going to be largely negative. I believe that unfortunately, so much has fallen under the umbrella of financial literacy that soon as a person walks in a room and says, oh, financial literacy, is gonna be like, oh Lord, no. Here they come. Here come one of the grifters. It's like I said, it's gonna be like walking in the room saying, I'm here to teach about Forex. It's gonna be like, boy, if you don't get the hell out this room. Right? And so it's one of the things that, not for you right now, but I'm gonna challenge you to kind of like put a little feather in your cap. And I want you to just kind of look around, because it is one of the things that I think you're going to have to start to distance yourself. Unfortunately, not that the word is a bad word, but it's just using it for marketing purposes is going to probably be something that you may want to consider distancing yourself from. So that's another thing that I want to ask you. We're seeing a lot of exposing. Everyone's exposing. Everyone's now, because they're having to say, hey, I'm not that guy. That's not how I run my business. So many people have not talked about it, and people are sort of saying, well, if you're not talking about it, are you complying with it? Are you okay with it? I'm seeing a lot of pressure for people in the financial sector. And you're probably like me, a lot of us, we don't want to get involved in the drama. You know what I mean? A lot of times we're like, I just want to run my business. You know what I mean? I don't really want to deal with that, but it kind of like comes to your front door, unavoidable as a conversation. So do you feel that pressure? If so, how are you responding to that? Are you feeling yourself, as the great philosopher Drake says, dealing with a heart that you didn't break? Right? Are you getting those customers that are like, once bitten, twice shy, skeptical now? How are you managing that?
That's oh man, wow. I was not expecting that one. I have had to deal with very skeptical clients. Even before the Black Wealth Blueprint, I've had to deal with, I've been burned, I've been robbed, you know what I mean? And things like that. And I don't have a formula for how I deal with that. I've never, I'm really glad that you asked me this question, because I've never just sat and given it deep thought around, well, how do I distance myself from that? I just try to show up as me. Honestly, I just try to show up as me. And, I can say a good 75% of the time it works. You know what I mean? Nothing is foolproof. But when I learned very early in the space of finance, I learned very early, people are really, they really want to see if you're genuine. They want to see your character just as much as your knowledge, especially when when it's dealing with finances, and especially when you're dealing with high net worth individuals. They watching. They watching how you shook their hand. I had a guy comment on how I shook his hand one time, and what he processed that to mean. And it was positive for me, but I was just like, okay, this it's a different ball game. It's a different ball game because throughout my career, I made a big jump in the level of net worth I was dealing with, right? So when I'm sitting down with different CEOs of hospitals and different things like that, and they're paying attention to certain details that they've been burned on in the past, or I dealt with this guy, bad situation, all of that, and then they come out and they tell me that, and we're 2, 3 meetings in, I'm like, "Oh, okay, okay. I see what you're looking for now. I'm understanding that this is just as much about who I am as an individual as the knowledge that I bring to the table." So I've never just sat and given it thought around, well, how do I distance myself from just the financial literacy gurus and all of the nonsense that's going on in the industry. But the biggest thing that I can say is I just try to be as genuine as possible. And I really try to make sure that we don't hang it up for the day in whatever setting we're in. If we're face to face, if we're over a Zoom or a phone call, until you've gotten what you needed out of that call, until you've gotten clarity around, okay, I understand the next steps, or this how we move, and I understand why you're recommending that. I'm not just about to recommend you do this and you don't fully get the why and just be on some yeah, trust me type of stuff. No. I want to make sure you clearly have an understanding of your finances, because regardless of if you move forward with me or not, if we ever speak again or not, this is your money and you got to deal with it because you're making decisions around your life savings. So, long story short, I really just try to show up authentic in that space, even with the stuff that I put out, the content that I put out, and different things like that. You can go watch my webinars on my YouTube channel and just all of that. Everything I just try to be as authentic as possible because I want you to understand your situation, your money. And I just believe that I'm a vessel to help bring that clarity rather than a salesman or something like that.
Right. So what you have done right now is presented me with an opportunity for a gem dropping moment. Now, so as you guys just heard Devin and I discussing a new environment of skepticism, overt skepticism, especially in industries like financial, whereas you may have conducted your business A1 and clean all of this time, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in a position of being overtly mistrusted and looked at as if maybe you're not on the up and up with your business when you've largely done nothing to warrant that level of skepticism. So you may not be prepared to deal with it, but you have to. You have to understand now that when it comes to environments like health and money, people are very, very weary of who and how they spend their time, especially when they've been burnt. So what can you do proactively? It's like I said, Drake says, I'm dealing with the heart that I didn't break. So proactively, you can understand that what you're dealing with is what we kind of refer to as a blueprint personality. Blueprint personalities are what some people consider atypical personalities. These are personalities that are very risk adverse. They don't like risk. They like certainty, assurity, guarantees. So what can you do to appeal to a blueprint personality who may be looking at you with a little skepticism? Well, one of the things that blueprints like, or a few things that blueprints like, is they like, one, for you to have degrees and certifications. That helps them feel like you actually know what you're doing. So in your marketing materials, you want to put that at the forefront. So if that's on your website, you want that to appear on the top of your website. If you have any degrees or letters or anything behind your name, make sure that that's there. Two, they like references and ratings. They like to know that other people have had great experiences with you. So if you have great ratings on Yelp or things like that, testimonials and rating systems, you want to make sure that that is largely communicated also in the forefront. They also like guarantees and money back rewards. So they know that if they work with you, that if they're not satisfied, that they'll be able to get their money back, or there's insurances and assurances to make sure that you deliver and execute on exactly what you said. Blueprint personalities also want you to do two things: under promise and over deliver. These are not the people that you want to overtly sell the world to. They want you to be pragmatic and realistic on what you're able to do. They like things that are itemized also. When you can list out exactly what they're going to receive from you and the flow of that, they love organization and they love structure. Blueprints also like stability. So they're perfectly fine with you having something that is in a realistic budget or format, and they don't like to be oversold. They want to know exactly what they're going to get right out of the gate. So if you have any of those things in your arsenal, those are things that you want to make sure are being very much loudly communicated right now in your marketing materials and in your messaging so that they can see. And of course, as he said, if you have any free webinars, anything that they can actually gauge and see and get just a little bit about what you know and what you do before they commit, that works very well with the blueprint personality type. So you know how I do. If I drop that gem on you, you can drop some coins, and we'll get back to the interview. So those are just things that I thought about, because that's the segment that you're working with, right? And even though, like we said, it's not you, these are now people who have been burnt that will be coming to you. I'm finding myself dealing with that. People who went for the flash, they're now doubling back to me to say, oh, I got burned. And so I have to understand where they are, which means sometimes I got to go a little bit more now to make them feel secure and assured.
Yeah, as you speak, like more is coming to my mind. I'm thinking through different experiences, and yeah, it's I don't want to use this phrase, but it's a little bit more hand holding. It's, you know, making sure you on your P's and Q's. Like one of the things that I do is like a recap email. This is what we discussed. These are the goals that you told me that this is what we agree on. This is what I'm working on for the next step. Now, again, with the Black Wealth Blueprint, I'm sticking to the fundamentals. I'm sticking to the fundamentals. I'm not giving financial advice. I'm teaching you how to pretty much understand your finances and plan for yourself, right? So we got to make sure that we clear on the fundamentals and the basics around certain things. If you don't understand, when you look at your life insurance policy, if it's a term policy or if it's a policy that builds cash value, how are we going to make sure that your financial legacy is intact? Because one of them is going to run out, and you're going to be you're going to be SOL in about 10, 15 years when you thinking it's another thing. So, you know, making sure that you solid with your estate planning. Do we understand the key elements of your estate plan? Okay, let's talk about your insurance again, not the life insurance, but talk to me around long-term care insurance. It's knowing your facts. 7 out of 10 Americans who reach the age of 65 are going to end up needing some level of long-term care. But when we say long-term care, most people go right to the experience that they've had in their mind of grandma in the nursing facility. But if you don't know that there are 3 different stages of long-term care, then you can miss out on certain things and really get ahead of it. A lot of my clients, especially with the Black Wealth Blueprint, are in the millennial generation, you know, 30s plus. I have some that are around retirement age, but we're in a unique space where we've got kids, but we've also got parents that are aging. And so if I can empower you to be in a space where you can now change your family's trajectory because you can help your parents get ahead of something while protecting yourself and protecting your kids, these are the kind of things that somebody who's going to be teaching financial literacy at this level needs to be bringing to the table versus what's the next play, right? So it's truly about, let's get the fundamentals, let's get the basics so that you know how to analyze your own finances from A to Z. The plays is all, you know, that's flashy, and I'm not knocking that, but we got to be clear on the fundamentals.
And I love that what I hear overarching in terms of your concern is sustaining, and maintaining, right? I think that a lot of focus over the last couple of years has been on accelerated growth in terms of wealth. And no one's really talking about maintaining and sustaining as much as I think the conversation needs to be had, because there are, you know, it's wonderful for us to unmask $1 million, but I think that so many people are seeing how fast that can go. It can go so quickly, and even there's taxes, lifestyle taxes that are unwritten and unsaid, that all of a sudden, you know, when you were at your $60,000 a year mark and you thought or conceived about $500,000, you're saying, oh, I could do all of this with the lifestyle that you have right there at that 60,000 mark. But you're not understanding, you can only scale that by also scaling in your overhead and your cost and things like that. So there's a lot. There's, you know, your attire and your travel and, you know, all of these time savers and things that also cost money that goes into that as well. And so all of a sudden, I think a lot of people who saw themselves like hit that 3-figure mark for the first time in the last couple of years and saw it go so fast, like, wow. They felt broker. I've talked to people who felt broker with the $100,000 than they did with the $60,000, right? And so that sustaining of that. And one of the things that I think too is going to be an optimal season for people like yourself who are teaching that is that there's people who got it and they lost it. Those people who are able to get it again, they're going to be focused on keeping it. They're going to, like, they'll be knocking your door down on how do I keep this money, right? Not necessarily just how to get it, because they see that now that changes. So I love that is really kind of your focal point, not just on the next like investment plan. Not saying there's, you know, anything's wrong with investment, but what people are largely able to control.
That's security. That's the difference. We are get the bag culture, and I'm all for it. Let's run it up, run it up. But if we don't have a foundation for that mansion to sit on, it's only a matter of time. It is only a matter of time. I see it day in, day out. I just do. And a big part of it that goes, it's not talked about enough, is our mindset. Our mindset dealing with money is, for so many reasons, warped. And that's an area that if you find yourself on this constant loop where it's like, why do I keep ending up in this same situation? You know, a lot of therapists talk around this in relationships, but we got financial stuff that we got to deal with. We have financial trauma, right? We have, based off of the experiences that individually that we've been through, but also just as a culture and community in this country with everything that our people have been through, we have financial trauma that if we are not at the very least exposing and shining under the light and becoming aware of and beginning to pull those weeds up, you're going to find yourself in the same loop with your finances. Financial psychology shows that many of our financial habits and our core beliefs about money are locked in by the age of 7. And if you think about it, it's like, I wasn't even dealing with money at that age. How can that be? But it's a lot of what you picked up through osmosis. Did you hear through the bedroom door your parents arguing about money? Or were you taught that when you want something, sometimes you have to wait on it? Because if you weren't, you're used to instant gratification. And now as an adult, you don't know how to save. It's very hard for you to save because that need for instant gratification is built in. It trickles over into our financial habits. Uh, so it's very important. This is why I start with this as the first pillar of financial security is mindset. It's very important because our beliefs, those core beliefs at that subconscious level, they shape our thoughts. Our thoughts shape our actions become patterns, and those patterns harden into character the more that we repeat them. And so, no matter the dollar amount, you're going to find yourself on this same loop. So, we got to deal with that first. And if you've dealt with financial trauma like I have, that's one of the things that I've had to deal. I'm constantly working through that. You got to, if you don't know how to unearth that, how to deal with that, it's gonna come out in your finances one way or another. So financial security is just as much up here as it is in the accounts.
Wow. And even like you said, the financial psychology, our relationship with money has been so complicated. It's almost like a love-hate because money has been really a source of pain for
Right,
us as
right,
being actual products on the market.
right,
Money was the source of our pain, right? It was the acquisition of wealth via our pain is
right.
going to create a toxic relationship with money. And then
Exactly.
the lack of money has become such a source of pain. Then, on top of that, those who have had the wealth and made us feel inadequate or less than, or you rub it in our faces, and we resent the people with money who've made us feel right inferior because we lacked money. So it's a very like, like I said, a love hate, and then feeling that at some point money is the source of all of the cures for everything that ails you, but then also not trying to be beholden to
Right,
the idea that money is supposed to fulfill you as well. So it's
right.
a very complex relationship that subconsciously, I think, when we do obtain it and we lose it, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, you know what I mean? That we're kind of like creating, because we're so afraid to have it,
Mhm,
so
mhm.
afraid to lose it that we actually cause the loss of it, right? By our own hands versus it being taken from us. So you're right. I think that that's a whole nother industry or conversation. It should almost be a prerequisite for so many people on their journey to being wealthy.
Yep,
Because like you said, without that, even when you get the money, you're still going to wind up finding yourself in this spiral, this
that
loop,
is it.
this repetitive behavior. And I think that that is so valuable that you brought that up, is because that is really, and then that deserving, and then it comes so quick. Because
Mhm,
typically when we get it, it's something that happens so quickly for us too as well. And so it just kind
yep,
of jars our system. Yeah,
mhm.
it's a lot. It's a
It's a
heavy
lot.
load. It's a
It's a
heavy
lot.
load, and for you dealing with that and dealing with the consumers, and now you have one more strike against you, which is people who just had it, just got it largely taken from them, just got scammed out of it. Just like, so it's another notch on the, like, we already
Mhm,
have a lot to deal with,
mhm, mhm.
right?
That's
And
it, that's
so
it.
yeah, I definitely wish you well on that aspect because it's a lot.
Yeah,
It is very traumatic. But one of the things about us is that we do recover. We
mhm,
largely are able to operate and learn even in trauma and out of trauma.
mhm.
So I do have
Yep.
great hope that we will also recover from that. So with that being said, can you please let everyone know, one, um, how to find you? This is most important, right? How do they find you? How do they take advantage of your services? What is that like, that customer
Yep.
onboarding process like for someone that wants to utilize your services?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, you can find me at thebwb.co, which stands for the Black Wealth Blueprint.co. So thebwb.co. That's the website. You can find me on Instagram at the Black Wealth Blueprint. And you can also find me on YouTube at Black Wealth Blueprint as well. If you just type in on YouTube, Wealth Garden Webinars, you'll see a series of webinars that I've done with other melanated financial professionals, because that's one of the issues is lack of representation which then leads to lack of exposure. Yes, we have the internet, but if you've got a dedicated place that you can go, so Wealth Garden webinars, and you'll find other melanated financial professionals in different areas of finance, whether it be taxes, estate planning, all these different things. But again, the flagship service that I provide right now is my official Blueprint Builders Club. It's a subscription-based club where twice a month we are getting together and I'm doing live virtual teaching where we're going through all things financial literacy. And we're starting at mindset, and we go through all 7 pillars. But you're able to bring your questions for specific situations. Again, I'm not giving detailed financial advice like you need to invest in XYZ because I don't know your full financial situation. I can't do that. But I am able to give general guidance and education because I want to teach a man to fish, so to speak, right? And so I'm a firm believer also from a mindset perspective that you can educate yourself through some of that trauma that you may have experienced, right? We can educate ourselves out of that. And so that's why I lead with financial education, if you will. But so the official Blueprint Builders Club is my flagship service. I am also developing a course that will be out later this year is my goal, as well as a book around those 7 pillars. But something that I think is also very, very valuable is our youth, right? Again, we heard that a lot of financial psychology really starts between 0 and 7. So something that I've started doing, which I really, really enjoy, because, you know, adults be stuck in their ways. I started teaching kids. So right now I teach kids 11 through 17 financial literacy, and you can find that through coinwisescholars.com. Coinwise. I want these kids to be coinwise. Coinwisescholars.com. So for the adults, the Black Wealth Blueprint on Instagram or the bwb.co. You can also find me again on YouTube, Wealth Garden Webinars. But if you've got kids and you're interested in them being able to learn from somebody that looks like them, somebody that made the mistakes that you want your kids to avoid, check out coinwisescholars.com.
Yes, and there's the quote is, it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. I thank you so very much for just even the insight. I hope that anyone listening, you've been fundamentally helped by this. This is amazing information. And as always, I hope that you were motivated. I hope that you were inspired. I hope that something really landed with you and is actually unlocking, whether that's an understanding or even some solution that you're able to bring to the table. And as always, I thank you so very much. And I hope you tune in to the next episode of the Drum Circle Show. You can catch us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. right here on YouTube. And so with that being said, see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.